everybody. Thanks for joining the American Humanist Association session on Living Our Humanist Values. I'm Emily Newman, Education Coordinator of the AHA Center for Education. I help develop our educational programs and support our local groups.
Hello, I'm Kristin Wintermute, the Director of Education. I was raised as a humanist, attending the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the largest humanist congregation in the world. My family was very involved in the First Unitarian Society and later the national movement as leaders. Both my parents were positive role models for me. I have dedicated 22 years of my career working within the humanist movement in a variety of roles. Today, I'm really excited to talk about the 10 Commitments Living Humanist Values. The 10 Commitments were conceptualized by Pritbar Kochar, who envisioned a way to articulate humanist values that inspire activism. Pritpal's motivation for the 10 Commitments stemmed from the 10 Commandments, but his impetus was not to form doctrine or dogma. It was of concern that defining humanism through debate and discussion appeared to be more the focus of the humanist movement than the practical application of humanism in daily life. The 10 Commitments provides a moral compass. They represent our shared values that promote a democratic world in which every individual's worth and dignity are represented, nurtured, and supported, and where human freedom and ethical responsibility are natural aspirations for everyone. The 10 Commitments stand on their own as humanist values to maintain and strive to practice daily. They propose we put our values into action to work towards positively impacting our communities and society. In their simplicity, the 10 Commitments ultimately define what we are about and what we stand for. They're also an avenue for collaboration, a gathering point for all humanists and humans to work together. For each commitment, the AHA Center for Education has made a full description and shorter action statement beginning with I will to help people articulate how each one can be practiced in daily life.
Altruism is the selfless concern for the welfare of other living beings without expectation of reward, recognition, or return. The collective welfare of our communities and society depends on the welfare of each individual person. We should always seek to alleviate the suffering and hardships of others with compassionate action. By caring for others around us and lifting each other up, we reinforce healthy connections and contribute to the betterment of our community, society, and the world.
Critical thinking. As we are each bombarded with a constant stream of information, it can be challenging to decide what is accurate and true. Thinking critically allows us to make sense of all this information and reason our way to good judgments and effective solutions to the problems we face while rigorously avoiding pitfalls like rationalization, conformity, and stereotyping. This process forms the basis of the scientific method, which opens the door for new discoveries through hypothesizing and experimenting. Critical thinking is a skill that requires continued attention, practice, and reflection. Exercising our mind, these skills enable us to challenge biases in ourselves and in others, paving the way for a fair, open-minded, and autonomous perspective that fosters a multicultural view.
Empathy means entering imaginatively into another's situation in an attempt to understand their experiences as though we are experiencing it ourselves. Empathy requires us to step outside of our own perspective to consider someone else's thoughts, feelings, or circumstance from that person's point of view. In many ways, empathy is the first step to ethical behavior, as it allows us to respond compassionately to the suffering of others and exercise good judgment when our actions may affect someone else. Understanding another's perspective is not only critical to building better relationships, but also makes us better citizens in our local and global communities. Empathy promotes tolerance, consideration, and compassion amongst us all.
Environmentalism. Regardless of our individual identities, we all share the same home, planet Earth. Just as we depend on the planet to sustain us with its precious resources, this planet's ecosystems depend on us to be good stewards and to take responsibility for the impact human activity has on our shared planet. Disregard for the large-scale impacts humans have on our environment has caused extensive harm to Earth's ecosystems. Despite this, humanity is also capable of positive environmental change that values the interdependence of all life on this planet. Each of us must acknowledge our collective and individual mistakes, repair past damages, and purposely work towards cultivating rich, diverse, and resilient ecosystems.
Ethical development. The key to understanding ethical development is acknowledging that nobody is perfect or has all the answers. Ethical development is a never-ending process that requires constant reflection and evaluation of our personal choices and the consequences they have on others. Fairness, cooperation, and sharing are among the first moral issues we encounter in our ethical development as human beings and are often embraced intuitively, but each new day carries with it new challenges and new moral dilemmas. We should continually adapt and rebuild our moral frameworks with the goal of becoming ever better human beings.
Global awareness. We live in a world that is rich in cultural, social, and individual diversity, a world with rapidly increasing interdependence. As a result, events anywhere are more likely to have consequences everywhere. Global awareness broadens our knowledge of cultures and perspectives that are outside of our own experience. A true global awareness includes attention to both current and historical events and acknowledges how we affect and how we are affected by the interconnected social, political, and economic systems in which we reside. The end goal of global awareness is global citizenship, which recognizes our personal responsibility to foster a healthy and dignified life for everyone in our global community.
Humility means displaying modesty about accomplishments, talents, gifts, or importance of self. It acknowledges we humans are fallible and have limitations in what we know and can do. Being humble isn't about having low self-esteem or denigrating oneself. Humility at its core is robust self-awareness, awareness of our strengths and weaknesses, our faults and our merits. Humility involves setting aside personal pride and overcoming our egos to embrace gratitude for what we have and appreciate others for who they are. In being humble, we recognize our own value, and in relation to others, inherently, we are neither better nor worse than anyone else.
Peace and social justice. True peace involves an intense commitment to social justice and affirms the human rights and personal autonomy of all people. Any level of injustice against groups or individual signifies existing conflict, even if the conflict isn't immediate or obvious. We attain peace only by consistently responding to injustice through thoughtful conflict resolution that aims to repair harms and ensure a fair and equitable society moving forward. This kind of conflict resolution is known as restorative justice. In order to achieve a just, peaceful society, we all must take claims of injustice seriously and ensure that those who are impacted most by rights violations determine the best course forward.
Responsibility. Every day, each of us makes choices. These choices, large and small, all have consequences for ourselves and for the world around us. Moral responsibility involves taking conscious ownership of one's intentions and actions and being accountable for the resulting consequences. Although we all live in a society with various cultural values, expectation, codes of conduct, and social more, ultimately we all decide for ourselves what is right and wrong. Being a responsible person involves steadfast attention to what is right and willfully bearing the blame or praise for our own actions.
Service and participation. Service and participation means putting values into action in ways that positively impact our communities and society as a whole. It fosters helping others, increasing social awareness, enhancing accountability, and many attributes of the other 9 commitments. Engaging in service doesn't just make the recipients better off, but those who serve can develop new skills, experiences, and personal satisfaction that all promote personal growth. We must all recognize that we are members of a group, and engaging service to benefit the group and the other individuals in it makes us all better off.
To help the general public put these commitments into practice, we've been working on developing activities for children, lessons for classes, and more content with various partners. On the right, you'll see an example of coloring pages that offer not only a creative outlet for art, but also an opportunity to review scenarios where the 10 commitments can be implemented to resolve an issue. On the left, you'll see a cover of the workbook that we developed, and it provides exercises for children to work on individually or with adults to understand how their actions impact the world around them. The workbook was originally developed with a humanist scoutmaster in Florida who wanted to start a humanist religious emblems program with the Boy Scouts of America. Although we didn't continue with that, we did make the workbook publicly available and designed our own humanist badges. And then due to interest in the workbook, we've worked with the Uganda Humanist Schools Trust to make it more accessible to people outside of the US who also speak other languages, and English is their second language. We're working on programs with Camp Quest, Campfire Girls, and other humanist communities around the world.
As Emily indicated, translations help make the 10 commitments more accessible to people around the world. Here's the Swedish translation, which came about when the editor of the Swedish Humanist magazine contacted me and was very interested in the 10 commitments being accessible to the humanists of Sweden. We've also translated the 10 commitments into German, Korean, French, Urdu, Bulgarian, Russian, Portuguese, and Spanish. We're working on more translations. If you could help with other languages, please feel free to contact us at the email that's on the screen. And we also have posters available if you want a poster for your office or community room or just for your home in general. Please don't, purchase it from the website on the screen. The AHA Center for Education strives to provide educational opportunities that serve humanist and secular communities like your own. The center offers a wide range of resources designed for humanist individuals and groups across the spectrum. Our programs take an innovative approach to teaching humanism, fostering ethical leadership, and growing community for the humanist movement. Our online studies aims to give individuals a clear understanding of humanism and help them apply that humanism to better comprehend the work, develop personal potential, and contribute to a better society. We have 2 levels of self-guided courses, basic and advanced. The basic courses offer an introduction to humanism and perspectives on activism and organization, science, law and politics, religion and spirituality, ethics, philosophy, religious humanism, and positive humanism. We also have available Bringing Humanism Home, activities for children and families. These are all free of charge, requiring only a registration. Our advanced courses are available for a small fee. They are geared toward helping community leaders, humanist professionals, and for individuals to explore current issues in today's society from a humanist perspective. We have trainings for celebrants, information on political activism, parenting, courses on gender and race, as well as a course on the right to die. Community resources include quarterly webinars for our local groups on a variety of topics. And our new series on special topics of concern, such as the COVID-19, is available online And it's a 3-part series, and it covers how to connect with humanist community, how to engage in mutual aid, and how to live a good life based on a book edited by Massimo Pigliucci. The master class is led by distinguished professors and is for established humanist leaders. The first class was led by William Hart, religious studies professor at Macalester College, on anti-Blackness and humanism. Sharon Welsh, academic scholar, social ethicist, and author of 6 books on ethics, theology, politics, religion, and spirituality, and is the prior provost of Meadville Lombard, taught the second class on white nationalism. Monica R. Miller, associate professor of religion and Africana studies at Lehigh University, led the third course on intersectionality. Here for Climate is a humanist environmental response effort to encourage local, immediate action that will make a difference, even when our federal government may not. The Center's foundation program is the Humanist Studies program, previously known as the Humanist Institute. It's a graduate level program dedicated to fostering leadership that is ethically grounded, informed, skillful, globally responsible, personally sustainable, and committed to meeting the genuine needs of real people. It offers students an opportunity to collaborate with a diverse faculty and student body who take a non-theistic, naturalistic approach to humanism where interpreted in secular and or congregational terms. Students can earn a certificate in humanist studies or pursue a Master's of Arts in Leadership with a concentration in humanism via our partnership with like-minded Unitarian Universalist Seminary, Meadville Lombard. Our newest additions to the AHA's Center for Education are Speaking of Humanism, a monthly event we host now online highlighting humanist authors and leaders. At the end of this month, we will be hosting youth authors and activists, Bailey and Elle Harris, who will discuss their experiences of growing up in a secular family in a highly religious area of the country. Critical Minds is an enrichment series with professors and adjunct faculty members. The first was on the neuropsychology of dogmatic beliefs and delusions with Mark Reimers, Associate Professor in Neuroscience Program at Michigan State University. The second was with Jay Hooper, PhD, Interdisciplinary Arts Candidate at Ohio University, the founder of Frequency House Productions, and humanist clergy leader with the American Ethical Union. He did a screening of his film, Humanists, and a discussion of art, imagination, and humanism. Further reflection is their instructor-led online short course series. Mark Reimers taught the first one on When We Almost Got It Right, Societies That Worked. And this fall, Jay Hooper will instruct us on Alan Locke's imagination, developing an eye for being Black, queer, and free beyond sight. Last, the Center helps to manage the Humanist Society, which is the organization that endorses humanist celebrants, chaplains, lay leaders, and invocators.
So all of that educational programming is available on the AHA Center for Education website. And we also encourage you to check out the American Humanist Association website, which is americanhumanist.org, and invite you to become a member so you can continue to network and join us in all that we do. Our new members receive a copy of Creating Change Through Humanism by Royce Beckhart, the AHA Executive Director. You receive 6 issues of our magazine, The Humanist, and also access to our articles online at thehumanist.com. You receive the Free Mind newsletter and various discounts to conferences and other special events. Plus, we encourage you to interact and learn from the about 250 local chapters and affiliates across the country, and we can always help you start a new group in your area if you don't already have one. And we appreciate our members helping to support humanist education, legislative and legal advocacy, and increasing the visibility for humanists, atheists, agnostics, nuns, and non-religious people, as well as supporting human rights in general for everybody. So thank you again for letting us present about our 10 commitments and the other work that we do, and adding to the SSA conference.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Kristin and Emily, for sharing this this new sort of construction of humanist values with us. I've seen prototypes of it through over the last year or so, I guess, and it's just really nice to see it come to fruition. And yeah, so I wanted to start by asking you, we have a couple questions coming in from the audience, but I wanted to start by asking you where you're starting to see this material, the 10 commitments in particular, being used out there in your groups. How are people sort of taking it and working with it in their communities?
You want to take that? Okay. So we saw a couple of the AHA local groups do presentations. I know like our one of our groups in Massachusetts decided to have like a deep conversation about the commitments and what they thought maybe they'd add. I was actually working with the American Ethical Union. We did a couple of sessions of nationwide children's programming online when we got into lockdown with COVID, and using them both as discussion on Zoom, but also as a way to find activities that the kids could do in between sessions, kind of like find ways for them to be able to disconnect from a device and go out into the world thinking about, you know, how do I find issues that I can help solve, or what's the world, the environment around me. And we also have had several meetings with Camp Quest about how they're going to be sharing our workbook with their families. We sent them over the first batch of badges when we got them, and I've recently added badges to our website, so other people using the workbook can get that. And kind of excited that Camp Quest has also been playing with the idea of developing some videos that we can add to it.
Yeah, we're huge fans of Camp Quest here at SSA, and really, in the last 3 years I've been involved here, talked a lot about sort of the pipeline, if you will, of like young people coming from their immediate family, of course, being raised by their family and going into elementary school, kind of starting off into camp and going off to high school and college, and perhaps spending some time with us at SSA. And then as they matriculate out of formal education into the working world, connecting up with organizations like AHA and American Atheists and others that they choose. And I think it's really neat to see this collaboration, across a person's life cycle. It does remind me of the best that the church had to offer. I think some of my most meaningful moments as clergy were really, walking with families through all the stages of their lives, and like dedicating their babies, and then, seeing them grow up and marry them off to their, partners one day, and that type of thing. It's a kind of a really rich long-term relationship. And I think the humanist community has lacked this type of curriculum for a while, and it's really great to see it. It's clever. The 10 commitments, is a neat, it feels better than being
criticism around that.
Really? I feel it's less punitive than being commanded.
Well, some people don't like it. They're like, why are you trying to play with the 10 commandments? But the other ways I've seen people use it, one of the heads of the downtown Chicago group, AHA chapter, he's been using the 10 commitments as new people come to their groups. And they say, what is humanism all about? And he just hands them the poster and says, this is what we believe in. This is where we're at. And this is what we stand for. And it's been really helpful, he said, in articulating humanism in a really practical way. Like people can really relate to it versus some philosophical long definition. Like, what the heck is that? So, and also in Uganda, I've been working with the Board of Trustees, head of the Board of Trustees. They have like 3 or 4 schools, and they're building curriculum for their schools with their teachers. So they've got a whole website that's got curriculum-oriented stuff that's more geared to their community. It wouldn't really fit for America, but we are working on more ideas about how to build out curriculum and activities that are centered around the 10 commitments, because I think it's a great way to put humanism into practice instead of just talking about it all the time. This is how you can be a humanist in your daily life.
Yeah, and I think that's really what matters, you know, is, I mean, I think, you know, the secular community loves to sit around and have a philosophical conversation. I mean, we're really good at that. But we live our lives in the real world. So we have some great questions coming in. And I think sort of building off of what we've just been talking about, this question from Patricia, I'm going to unmute you, Patricia. And actually, you'll probably have to unmute yourself as well. And you have a couple questions here.
Hi, Emily. How are you today? I know Emily. I'm so happy that I know someone here today.
What was your question about? You had a question about curriculum.
Right. Well, I'm, as you can see, I'm the president of the Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society, so I'm affiliated with the American Ethical Union. And we're trying to develop a children's educational program centered around the ethical culture core values, as well as the humanist 10 commitments. And I'm just wondering, I have looked at that workbook that was designed, but I'm wondering, is there any plan on actually designing a curriculum, you know, a scope and sequence, something that, you know, groups like ours can actually begin implementing, you know, kind of getting us started in educating our children on these values. And so is there any thought of doing anything like that?
Emily, do you want to answer that since you're closer to, and you know Patty?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix, because it's, you know, we definitely want the 10 commitments to be more accessible to people and easy to use. We also know that, you know, people kind of like the freedom of being able to come up with their own program ideas, or kind of like adapt it to what works in the structure that you already have. So it's kind of, so I would say, yes, we are interested in making the curriculum. We don't have a package to give to you right away, and we can, you know, we'd certainly be happy to collaborate. You know, like Kristin and I are in the education field and have worked a lot with curriculum and different courses, but we are not as experienced as others in our movement with creating lesson plans for children, and especially the kind of designations of each age group. So it is a project that is not at the top of our list, but definitely on the top of our wish list.
It's been on our mind for sure. And we're willing, like Emily said, to partner with anyone. Like most secular humanist organizations, we don't have a huge budget to do everything. So, but we would, our vision is to essentially develop a character-based curriculum that would coincide with the 10 commitments. And we would love to do it. We've been wanting to do it for like, what, a year and a half, Emily? So we're kind of baby steps at this point, as we've got the workbook going, and it's going to turn into an activity book with the coloring pages, as you saw. And we're hoping to get that out. And then maybe the next step is to have more robust sort of character-based curriculum that can be instituted in a society or a congregational setting. So we hope so. If you know anybody who wants to work with us, we're more than happy to just email us.
I wanted to sort of bridge from that to talking about high school, I guess, and college students, the students that we work with. What have you had college students sort of work with you on the development of this, or have any expressed interest in sort of trying to implement it in a collegiate environment?
No, but we would be open to any suggestions and anyone that's interested in working with us.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see, to have maybe a focus group of SSA students to sort of take a look at it and kind of think like, could we work with this in our collegiate setting, and how would we implement it? What kind of like practical engagements, would we, so like for instance, when it comes to peace and social justice, what would that look like on a college campus? How would they engage that? Because there's so many ways.
There's a ton. I've got a million ideas floating in my head, like environmentalism, how can you work with your college to, deal with waste in the food halls and have more sustainable, ethical eating. And, there's a myriad of ways that action items that could go around these. And like Emily said, we'd love to work with people if they have great ideas and to help, kind of brainstorm and institute. But it really, we are hoping that people kind of take the framework and for their particular setting and decide what's doable. But we're here to consult and work with you if anybody's interested.
And I'll add to that, we were really excited when we first created the posters, because we made like a whole list of like all the places we could see the posters being put up from, not just the classroom, but people's offices and like our humanist communities, but even outside of the humanist movement, yes, of course, we want to promote humanism and these are essential parts of it, but we think that there are also big keys to being decent, ethical, respectful people. So, we don't want to limit it to just the humanist movement. We'd love for interfaith and secular and, everybody to just kind of think about how they can use these elements in their life.
What I would really love to see is in Denmark, they have made it sort of mandatory as a part of young children all through ages and stages, even in the universities, teaching empathy and the results of having empathy as a part of what you learn, not just in the classroom, but in your home. And it's changed their nature of their culture. Just teaching empathy and making this something in the forefront, which is a 10 commitment. They found that people are more tolerant, that they have more compassion for others. So it kind of reverberates. I'd love for the 10 commitments to be something like Emily said, that we accepted as, this is how we should behave as human beings. So that's my pie in the sky vision.
That's great. No, it's great. Neil says in the chat that Camp Quest has also just hired a program director to work on a materials program. And so I feel like there's a convergence around some of these topics, and it's good to see. Someone is asking in the chat about the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple. Did you take a look at those, or have you spent time looking at those, and what do you think of them, and how do they sort of fit with the 10 commitments in any way?
I know nothing about the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple. I'll tell you that my personal background, I grew up as a humanist. I'm not real, focused on other religious tenets. But so I don't think much about them, actually. That's kind of my answer. I don't think at all about them.
Okay.
Well, I'll say, I mean, I'm not very familiar. I looked them up. Actually was in a conversation with somebody recently about how he didn't want to join one of the local groups because they accepted Satanists. And I looked that they actually had a program where they discussed how Satanists are not what you think they are, you know, like especially when you learn about the Satanic Temple. So I think that there is a lot of overlap, and there's literally compassion, empathy, science, you know, reason in the Satanic tenets. But I think that one of the things that distinguishes ours are that we have like these one-word concepts that can be broken down for different reading levels and ages. And so it's almost like kind of simplifying or having like a baseline, while it looks like the tenets are kind of like full sentences that are a little bit more making a stand or an argument, like this one about people are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify and solve it. I mean, that directly connects to humility, as we had mentioned. So I
would say that would go to the fact that if their tenets overlap with our tenets, then as human beings, we tend to want to strive for similar things like empathy and altruism, and that, you know, because we overlap doesn't mean that. I think for me, it means more that these are human things that we value just as human beings in existence on this planet. Mm-hmm. And it's not attributed to, anyways,
and there are different, there are different Satanisms, and the Satanic Temple in particular is an expression of humanism. So I would expect, at least from my perspective, it seems like an expression of humanism. So I would expect there to be some overlap there.
Well, and there's overlap with other religions. I mean,
sure.
You know, Christianity certainly says love thy neighbor. Yep. So, you know, I mean, they just say it in a different way. So, I mean, these are basic fundamental moral character education that if you look back in the history of the US, moral education somewhere in the 50s was given over to the religions and taken out of the public school system. And I think there's this big impetus now to bring character education back into our public school systems, like Denmark did, that, you know, focusing on math and science and reading is great, but we're losing our compassion and our humanity by not teaching kids how to treat each other well. So there's this movement called Characterorg has this whole movement to get character education and moral ethical development back in the public school system, which I'm pretty happy to see. And I'd love the 10 Commitments to flow in that way too.
Do you I'm sitting here thinking, like, what are the contexts for this type of rubric to be used? And of course, we've talked about Camp Quest, we've talked about Humanist, American Ethical Union congregations, we've talked about, I'm sure UU congregations would be another potential. And of course, your affiliate your local chapters of AHA is another one. But it strikes me that it could be something personal as well. Like I remember as a Christian, I had morning devotions, where I would like read a passage from my Bible or read a book, like a chapter of a book, and maybe journal a little bit, which I still do. I just don't read the Bible, but I like having a little bit of time in the morning to kind of center myself. And I think there would be a value in even using it in the individual level.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as kind of a personal guideline for, how to sort of, what's your foundation? And I think that's what a lot of people in the humanist movement have been asking for, is like, please don't debate and define humanism again. And this was Prit Paul's big thing was, I'm just tired of the debate and trying to, wordsmith the different definitions. I want to go out and live humanism. And what does this mean? And that's really what drove him. He's He's a guy that leads Sierra Club trips. Well, he did before COVID. And so he's always a guy on the go. And he was like, how can I get this? Like, how can I live humanism? I don't want to talk about all this philosophical stuff anymore. So that was kind of his impetus in creating these. And yes, I think it can be a personal guide. Like, this is how I'm going to approach my day. You know, I'm going to try to be as empathic as I possibly can. I'm going to do right by my environment, even if it's just composting in my own house, you know?
Yeah, and it's putting our values and beliefs into positive terms as opposed to defining ourselves by what we're not. And I think, you know, we've heard from people on social media. I've heard when I do some of my like one-on-one interviews with humanist celebrants and chaplains who are looking for endorsement or re-endorsement through the Humanist Society, how like they love being able to confidently say, here's what I do, here's what I strive to do, here's what I put out there into the world to improve it, as opposed to just, oh, I don't believe in God and that's the end of the story.
No, I think that's so important. I feel I've felt that since I set foot into the humanist, atheist, secular community, the need, and I realized that by conflating all those things, doesn't quite work either. But regardless, like whichever of those, I mean, especially humanism, I feel like really we need to improve in that area, and I think this is a way to do that, and it's really great. How, if folks want to stay in touch or give feedback or work with you on future developments, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Maybe they already know. Maybe we're talking to the choir.
I would say the education at americanhumanist.org. And Emily just put it in the chat.
Great.
That's the best way to reach us. It's where, you know, it's kind of our filter email where, you know, if you've got questions or concerns, we look at it every day. So if we don't answer you, we're trying to figure out how to answer you. So we do read it every day, and it's not just a dumping ground.
And then
it's just the best way to reach us.
So, oh, great. You read my mind. So in the chat, and for those of you that are on our social media platforms, I'll say them again because you don't have the chat. Education at americanhumanist.org. That goes to both Emily and Kristin, and they'll see that. And if you have thoughts about implementation, thoughts about ways to continue this work, they're interested in hearing from you. And then American Humanist, centerforeducation.org and americanhumanist.org are the websites that they referred to in their presentation. I know that the American Humanist centerforeducation.org website has tons of information about the coursework that they referred to, and also in the humanistcommitments.org. Yeah, that's the...
You want to go directly to the commitments instead of navigating through.
Yeah, you can get the posters, and we're working on t-shirts. I'm working on, if anyone has good ideas on print on demand shops, let me know about that too, because I really like to get those t-shirts out there, which I think would be kind of cool with the big wheel and your, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. We look forward to continuing this conversation. I mean, this is like a great sort of workshop environment, really, you know, to see what you've developed. It's attractive, colorful, you know, and I think it is open-ended in the sense that it could be adapted for kids, it could be adapted for college students, it could be adapted for, you know, a meetup group of senior citizens. It could be really like anybody can use it. So I think it's great. So thank you so much for sharing it, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.